Alright, gather round because I have a story for you. And this one is a beautiful, expensive facepalm of a lesson in modern business. It's about a software company out in Arizona, a perfectly respectable mid-sized outfit doing education products for schools all across the Southwest. They had a good reputation, solid client relationships, you know the type. The kind of company that prides itself on being responsive and helpful. But, like so many places these days, they were stretched. Way too much work, not nearly enough people, and hiring budgets that were, shall we say, aspirational. So things are tight. Then, someone high up in management is digging through the performance metrics and notices an anomaly, an outlier, a statistical "what on earth is that?" One of their mid-level employees, we'll call her Maya, was consistently, and I mean consistently, outperforming her peers. We're not talking 20% better, we're talking by a factor of 7 to 10. 7 to 10. Her email response times were lightning fast. Her technical documentation was clearer, more comprehensive than anyone else's. She was juggling multiple complex client issues at the same time, and somehow the quality never dipped. Customers who dealt with Maya were just happier. Her satisfaction scores were through the roof. So, eventually, her manager pulls her aside. "Maya, this is incredible, but how? Are you secretly a set of triplets working in a trench coat?" And Maya's answer was simple, almost deceptively simple. She said, "I've been working with AI." And notice the wording there. Not using AI for the occasional task. Working with it. She'd spent months, on her own time, developing an entire system. She learnt how to frame problems for the AI, how to feed it the right context, how to guide it, iterate with it, and refine its outputs until they were perfect. The AI wasn't a magic button replacing her brain. It was a force multiplier. It was amplifying her expertise, letting her apply her skills at a scale that was, frankly, superhuman. Now, here's where the story takes a sharp left turn into a brick wall. Management hears this, and a little cartoon $sign appears in their eyes. Their logic, from a certain deeply flawed angle, seemed logical to them. They thought, wait a minute, if one employee plus an AI can do the work of 10 people, why are we paying for the employee part of that equation? I know, just let that sink in for a second. Their brilliant plan was to cut costs, scale the AI, and pat themselves on the back for their efficiency breakthrough. So, Maya was let go. Fired. Her access credentials, the keys to this finely tuned system she built, were handed over to her manager. Problem solved, right? Within 2 weeks, the cracks started to appear. Big, ugly, client-facing cracks. The same AI that had produced crisp, empathetic, context-aware emails under Maya's guidance was now spitting out robotic corporate jargon that just confused customers. It sounded like a marketing bot having a mild stroke. Technical documentation became a mess. It was inconsistent, sometimes contradicting itself on the same page. Client issues that Maya used to solve in a single, elegant exchange now devolved into endless, frustrating email chains. And the thing is, the AI wasn't broken. It was doing exactly what it was told. Its outputs were grammatically correct, they were superficially professional. But the magic, the nuance, the human expertise that Maya provided, that was gone. The ghost was out of the machine. By week 4, customer satisfaction scores had fallen off a cliff. The support team was now spending more time fixing the AI's mistakes than they would have spent just writing the emails from scratch. The efficiency breakthrough had become an inefficiency nightmare. Management, in a full-blown panic, scrambled to rehire Maya. But guess what? She'd already accepted a position with a competitor that, surprise, surprise, actually understood what her former employer had missed. The AI hadn't been the source of that 7 to 10 times productivity improvement. The collaborative, symbiotic relationship between Maya and the AI had been. You can't just fire the pilot and expect the plane to land itself. Maya's new salary was double her previous compensation. Her old employer spent the next 6 months and a boatload of cash rebuilding client relationships and training their team to actually work with AI, not just deploy it. The lesson cost them roughly $50,000 in direct expenses, and who knows how much more in lost opportunities and reputational damage. A very expensive oops. And this story isn't some unique little fable. Variations of it are playing out in organisations all over the world. It's contributing to a pattern that researchers at MIT and Harvard have flagged as seriously troubling. The vast majority of AI projects fail to deliver their expected value. Not because the technology is bad, but because organisations fundamentally misunderstand what it takes. It's not about replacing people, it's about amplifying them. And that, as one Arizona software company learned, is a lesson you don't want to learn the hard way. So next time you hear someone say AI is going to solve all their problems, maybe ask them, who's going to be Maya? Have you ever seen a company spend an eye-watering amount of money on a shiny new AI tool, only to have it collecting digital dust a month later? Of course you have. It's the hottest new corporate ghost town. The story is always the same. Massive investment, huge promises, and then a quiet, whimpering retreat. We call this spectacular failure to launch the magic black box problem. It's this tendency to treat artificial intelligence like some sort of mystical oracle. You give it an instruction, you cross your fingers, and you expect pure, unadulterated genius to just pour out. The pattern is remarkably, almost painfully consistent. An organisation buys the most sophisticated AI they can find. They roll it out with an email, maybe a 30-minute webinar that everyone watches on double speed while answering other emails. And then they expect transformative results. Immediately. When those results, shockingly, don't materialise, the blame game starts. The technology isn't there yet. It doesn't understand our unique business needs. So they either blame the tool, go out and buy an even more sophisticated tool, or they just abandon the whole AI thing, muttering about hype. And this all fails for one simple, fundamental reason. It treats AI as an automation technology, when what it actually is a collaborative intelligence system. And the difference between those two things is everything. Think about it. Automation thinking goes like this. Give the machine clear instructions, get a consistent output, and replace human effort. It's a pipeline. Input, process, output. The human sets it up, pats it on the head, and walks away to do something more important. It's a vending machine. Collaborative intelligence is different. It's less like a vending machine and more like a new colleague. A very fast, slightly weird colleague who has read the entire internet but has never actually ordered a coffee before. You have to develop a working relationship. You build a shared context and understanding over time. And what you get isn't replacement, it's amplification. Your own capabilities extended and enhanced through a genuine partnership. A friend of mine, let's call her Maya, her former employer fell headfirst into this automation trap. Maya was getting incredible results from their new AI platform. Her team thought she'd found some magic words, a secret list of prompts that just unlocked the AI's power. But that wasn't it at all. What they missed was that Maya hadn't just found a cheat code. She'd developed a genuine working partnership. She'd spent weeks refining her approach, teaching the AI the nuances of their clients, feeding it examples of her best work, and correcting its mistakes. It required ongoing attention, adjustment, and mutual adaptation. Her bosses saw the AI as a tool that should function independently. They couldn't grasp that its success was tied directly to the collaborative effort Maya was putting in. They just wanted the magic words. And you see this play out in a very recognisable way every single day. Someone sits down with an AI system and types in something like, "Write a professional email about the quarterly budget review." A classic. The AI, having no context, produces the most generic corporate speak imaginable. We must synergize our strategic initiatives to optimize resource allocation paradigms. It's complete nonsense. It sounds important, but it means nothing, so the user tries again. Be more specific. And they get a slightly different flavour of the same vagueness. Frustration sets in, so either they accept the mediocre output and spend the next 20 minutes editing it into something a human would actually say, or they close the tab and conclude that AI isn't ready for their business. This exact cycle repeats thousands, maybe millions of times a day in organisations all over the world. And it leads to this widespread conclusion that feels so reasonable but is just fundamentally wrong. That the technology isn't capable enough. The technology is fine. It's amazing, actually. The interaction pattern is broken. Or maybe it's more precise to say there is no interaction pattern. There's just a person typing commands into a box and hoping for magic. And that, my friends, is a terrible strategy. So one of the core issues hiding underneath this whole magic black box problem is something we call the semantic language gap. It sounds academic, I know, but stick with me. It's simply the disconnect between how we, as humans, communicate our intent and how an AI actually processes that information. Think about it. Most people can write a basic prompt. Write an email to my boss about taking Friday off. Easy. Some people can get really sophisticated, crafting these long, multi-part prompts with personas and detailed constraints. They are the prompt whisperers. But very, very few people can actually explain why certain prompts land perfectly while others crash and burn. They can't tell you how to systematically troubleshoot when an interaction goes completely sideways, or explain the maddening phenomenon of the same prompt given to the very same AI system, producing a masterpiece on Tuesday and absolute gibberish on Wednesday. This gap isn't just a theoretical problem. It shows up in several recognisable and, frankly, frustrating patterns. The first, and most common, is what I call surface-level prompting. This is where users get obsessed with finding the right words, as if there's a secret formula, a magic incantation that unlocks the AI's genius. They treat prompting like a search engine query. They just throw keywords at the screen and cross their fingers. But prompting isn't search. It's communication. And real communication requires a shared context, a mutual understanding of goals, not just the correct syntax. The second pattern is the one that drives people to tear their hair out. Inconsistent results. When you don't understand how the AI is processing your information, you have zero ability to predict or control the quality of the output. It feels like playing a slot machine. You get a brilliant, insightful, perfectly crafted response one day, and you think, aha, I figured it out. Then the next day, you use a nearly identical prompt. Maybe you change one trivial word, and you get back something that looks like it was written by a confused intern after 3 espressos. And you have absolutely no idea what changed. Was it the time of day? A server update thousands of miles away? The phase of the moon? This leads directly into the third pattern: a total inability to troubleshoot. When an AI interaction fails, most users have no systematic approach to figure out why. Their method is basically just poking it with a stick. They try random variations, swapping out synonyms, rephrasing a sentence here and there, just hoping something sticks. More often than not, they either give up entirely, convinced the tool is useless, or they just accept close enough. They take the mediocre output and then spend the next hour manually editing it to be what they wanted in the first place, completely defeating the purpose of using the tool. And the fourth pattern is the absence of iterative development. So many users expect perfect, finished product results from their very first prompt. They treat the AI like a vending machine. Put in a command, get out a perfect product. They don't understand that collaboration with an AI is a process, a conversation that learns and adapts over time. You wouldn't expect a new human assistant to read your mind on day one. You'd guide them, give feedback, and refine the process together. That's how the best results are achieved here too. Ultimately, the semantic language gap exists for a simple reason. Most AI training, especially in the corporate world, focuses on tool usage rather than on partnership development. Organisations teach their people what buttons to push. They show them the interface. They give them a list of 10 cool prompts to try, but they don't teach people how to think collaboratively with an artificial intelligence. And believe me, those are two profoundly different skills. Alright, so last time we talked about the magic black box approach to working with AI. You know, the one where you type a vague request, cross your fingers, and pray to the silicon gods that something useful comes out. And we established, pretty firmly, I think, that it's a terrible strategy. A recipe for frustration and mediocre results. So if that doesn't work, what does? To answer that, we need to peek under the hood a little. Not in a get your soldering iron out kind of way. You don't need a PhD in computer science to do this effectively, just like you don't need to be a mechanic to drive a car. But you do need to understand the rules of the road. What is actually happening when you work with an AI? Why do some prompts get you exactly what you need, while others produce, well, digital word salad? Through a whole lot of research and even more practical, hands-on, let's try to break this thing experimentation, we've boiled it down to 3 core ideas. 3 interdependent aspects of how an AI thinks. We call it the C.A.P framework. That's C.A.P for coherence, attention, and patterning. Understand these 3 and you go from guessing to collaborating. And just to be clear, these aren't 3 separate microchips inside the machine. They're different dimensions of the same process. They're how AI makes sense of the world, and more importantly, how we can help it make sense of our world. Let's dig in. First up, C for coherence. Coherence is the AI's ability to maintain a consistent train of thought, to keep its story straight, to maintain logical and contextual awareness from the beginning of a conversation to the end. But here's the kicker, the part everyone misses. Coherence is not a built-in feature of the AI. It is a dynamic state that you, the human, must actively manage. Think of it like having a conversation with a brilliant but easily distracted colleague who's juggling 6 different projects. The more topics you throw at them, the more you jump around, the more you switch context without warning, the higher the chance that details get dropped, wires get crossed, and they start contradicting themselves. AI is that colleague, but on a massive scale. Coherence starts to drift when a conversation goes on too long without a reset. It drifts when you give it contradictory instructions. It drifts when you feed it information in little unstructured chunks. Basically, any time you don't provide a clear map, you're asking it to navigate a labyrinth in the dark. It'll get somewhere, but probably not where you intended. So the responsibility is on us. We have to provide the structure. We establish the boundaries and the scope for each task. We maintain that context. And, crucially, we learn to spot the signs of coherence decay. When the AI starts forgetting earlier points or getting confused, and we step in before the whole thing goes off the rails. Let me give you a concrete example. Same task, two wildly different approaches. Approach A. Write an email to stakeholders. Actually, no, make it about the new budget. Oh, and mention the timeline. But keep it short. But also, we need to cover all the risks and the opportunities. And make sure it sounds professional, but not, too formal. What in the world is an AI supposed to do with that? It's a mess of competing priorities and vague, contradictory instructions. The output will be a Frankenstein's monster of an email, trying to satisfy every command at once and satisfying none of them. Now, contrast that with approach B. Write a professional email to project stakeholders with the following structure. Section 1. Budget status update. We are under by 5%. Section 2. Timeline confirmation. We are on track for Q2 delivery. Section 3. Key risks. Resource availability in March. Section 4. Mitigation plan. We have a contractor backup identified. The tone should be confident but transparent. Target length, 300 to 400 words. See the difference? It's not subtle. It's night and day. Approach B provides a clear, logical framework. The AI doesn't have to guess what's important. It knows. It can dedicate all of its processing power to executing the task well, not to deciphering your chaotic train of thought. Structure is clarity, and clarity is the foundation of coherence. Next up, A for attention. Here's a simple truth. AI doesn't multitask well. It focuses where it's told to focus. But unlike our attention, which can shift based on social cues, subtext, and intuition, AI attention needs to be explicitly directed. You have to be the director of the movie, telling the camera exactly where to point. Attention scatters when prompts are ambiguous. It scatters when you throw 5 different ideas into one request without telling the AI which one is the star of the show. And it really, really scatters when we assume the AI will just know what's important. It won't. It's an incredibly powerful tool, but it is not a mind reader. The human's job here is to be the laser pointer. Be explicit. Focus on this, ignore that. Prioritise argument flow over grammatical perfection for this draft. Use the data from this specific report and disregard the outdated one. You are constantly putting up guardrails, defining the playground in which the AI is allowed to operate. Here's the practical difference. The unfocused request. Review this document and tell me what you think. Great, thanks. What am I supposed to think about? The grammar, the formatting, the core argument, the tone, the factual accuracy? The AI will just pick one, probably at random, and it might not be the one you cared about at all. Now, the attention-directed request. Review this document focusing specifically on whether the argument is logical and if the evidence supports each major claim. Ignore all stylistic and grammatical concerns for now. Boom. Now the AI knows exactly its mission. Its massive processing power is aimed at a specific target, and the feedback you get will be 10 times more valuable. And what's really interesting is that this can be trained over time. If you consistently enforce certain boundaries and focus areas, the AI starts to learn your typical attention patterns. It gets better at guessing what you mean, even when you're a little less explicit. It's like a colleague who, after working with you for a year, knows that when you say, "Give me the highlights," you want the financial data first. That efficiency is built, not inherent. Which brings us perfectly to our last letter, P for patterning. This is all about how an AI learns relationships, synthesizes information, and develops habits through repeated interaction. It is the law of non-contradiction in action. Consistent inputs create reliable patterns. Inconsistent inputs create, chaos and confusion. AI learns through consistency, iteration, and repetition. Think of it like building a muscle. Every time you provide clear feedback, you're doing a rep. Every time you reinforce a style you like, you're doing a rep. Early consistency builds habits that get stronger and stronger with each interaction. Contradictory feedback, praising a formal tone one day and criticizing it the next, is like skipping leg day. It disrupts the whole system. This is the secret behind why established AI partnerships are so much more effective than one-off interactions. The difference isn't the technology, it's the accumulated library of shared patterns. The human and the AI have built a shared understanding of what good looks like in their specific context. Consider this. Session 1 with a brand new AI. You say, "Draft a project status update." You get something generic, sterile, corporate. You say, "Too formal, make it more conversational." It gets a little better. More like how our team actually talks. Closer, but still off. You spend 3 or 4 rounds just trying to calibrate the tone. Now, session 100, with your established AI partner. You say, "Draft the project status update for the engineering team." And what you get back is perfect on the first try. It's casual but informative. It includes the in-jokes. It matches the established communication patterns of that team. Why? Because you've already built the pattern. The AI knows what status update for engineering means for you. It's not guessing anymore. Every time you correct the AI, give it structured feedback, or say, "Yes, that's exactly it, do it like that from now on," you are programming its operational framework. You are building a shared language. The reason some people feel like they have a seamless workflow with their AI is because they've put in the time to build that pattern library through consistent interaction. It wasn't magic. It was work. And here's the final, most important piece. Coherence, attention, and patterning are not separate things. They are a self-reinforcing cycle, a beautiful, virtuous loop. Managing coherence with good structure requires you to direct attention effectively. Directing attention consistently over time creates reliable patterns, and those established patterns make it infinitely easier to maintain coherence in future tasks. Each element feeds the others. This is what the best AI collaborators, the AI whisperers, like Maya from our earlier story, understand. She wasn't just writing better prompts, she was actively managing the entire C.A.P cycle. She provided structure to maintain coherence. She gave explicit instructions to direct attention. And she offered consistent feedback to build patterns. When her company tried to remove her and just have managers use the AI directly, they broke the cycle. They disrupted all 3 dimensions at once. The AI still worked, technically, it spit out words, But without a human actively managing its coherence, directing its attention, and reinforcing its patterns, the quality, relevance, and value of its output plummeted. The technology was unchanged, but the collaborative intelligence, the human AI system they had built, was gone. And that made all the difference. Alright, let's talk about the biggest mistake people are making with AI right now. And no, it's not accidentally asking it to launch the nukes. It's much simpler and far more common. It's about a fundamental misunderstanding of the relationship. We've spent all this time learning the techniques, the prompts, the C.A.P framework we talked about, and that's all necessary. But it isn't sufficient. The real shift, the one that separates the amateurs from the pros, goes way deeper than a few clever commands. It's about moving from using AI as a tool to working with it as a partner. Think about it. In the old model, the tool use paradigm, what's happening? Humans give commands, AI executes instructions. Period. Success is measured by one simple metric. Did the AI do what I told it to do? The whole relationship is transactional. You put your coin in the machine, you get your gumball out. Input, output, done. This is where most people live. And it's fine for simple stuff. But it's like owning a grand piano and only ever playing chopsticks. You're missing the entire point. Now contrast that with the partnership model. Here, humans and AI co-reason toward an objective. That word, co-reason, is everything. It's not about one giving orders and the other obeying. It's about both parties bringing their distinct capabilities to the table and figuring it out together. Your strategic insight, its processing power. In this model, success looks totally different. It's not about getting what you asked for. It's about emergent outcomes. Results that are better, smarter, more creative than what either you or the AI could have produced alone. And the relationship isn't transactional, it's developmental. It grows, it deepens, it gets more capable over time, just like any good working relationship. And I know, this might sound like some fluffy semantic framing. Oh, let's call it a partner, that's nice. But it's not. This mental shift has massive, practical implications for every single interaction you have with AI. Let's take a simple, everyday task, writing an email. The tool use approach goes like this. AI, write this email to my boss. The AI produces something. You say, thanks. Maybe you don't even look at it that closely. You accept the result. You offer zero feedback. No guidance on whether the output was brilliant or garbage. Transaction complete. You got your gumball. Now, the partnership approach. It starts with a conversation. Okay, I need to communicate our new budget concerns to the key stakeholders, but I can't cause a panic. The key points are X, Y, and Z. My goal is to sound confident, but also totally transparent about the challenges. Let's draft this together. See the difference? You're not just giving a task, you're explaining intent. You're defining the problem space. The AI produces a draft, and the conversation continues. Okay, the structure is good, but the tone on the risk section feels a bit too cavalier. It's a little, don't worry your pretty little heads about it. Let's strengthen the mitigation language to show we're on top of this and taking it seriously. What you're doing is iterative refinement. You are collaborating toward a shared standard of quality. You're treating the AI as a collaborator with unique processing skills that complement your human judgment. It's part of the problem solving, not just the task executing. And here's the kicker. This all matters so much because effective AI collaboration actually requires many of the same principles as successful human relationships. You know, all the stuff we're already so good at. First, clear communication. You wouldn't expect a new human colleague to just psychically understand your team's unspoken rules, your priorities, or the history of a project. Of course not. You'd onboard them. AI needs the same thing. It needs explicit guidance, context, and clearly defined expectations. Second, positive reinforcement. Look, I'm not saying you need to be polite to a machine for its feelings. This isn't about manners. It's about data. When the AI produces good work, acknowledge it. Tell it why it was good. When it misses the mark, provide specific corrective feedback. You are literally reinforcing the neural pathways that lead to reliable, high-quality outputs. You're training your partner. Third, iterative development. No partnership, human or digital, hits its peak on day one. It takes time. Human colleagues learn each other's working styles, their strengths, their weaknesses, their quality standards. AI partnerships are exactly the same. They develop through consistent, focused interaction. And finally, and this one is crucial, mutual adaptation. This isn't a one-way street. Yes, the AI adapts to your guidance, but for this to truly work, you have to adapt too. You learn how to frame problems more effectively. You learn what kind of context yields the best results. You develop an intuition for when to guide and when to let it run. Remember Maya, the logistics analyst from our earlier story? She didn't just train her AI. In the process, she was training herself. She developed her own capacity to structure complex problems in a way the AI could digest, to provide the right context at the right time. She adapted. This is exactly why that Arizona company's attempt to just copy her AI solution failed so spectacularly. They saw a magic box. They treated Maya's collaborative partnership as if it were just a bundle of technical configurations, a piece of software they could copy and paste into their own workflow. But you can't copy and paste a relationship. Partnerships aren't transferable. They are unique, living things that have to be developed, nurtured, and built over time. It's not a tool you download. It's a colleague you cultivate. All right, let's get into the slightly weird, slightly squishy side of working with AI. We spend so much time talking about prompts, parameters, and processing power. We focus on the technical specs, the how-to guides. But what about the how it feels guide? Because there is a very real, very tangible difference between using an AI as a glorified search engine and properly collaborating with one. This is what we could grandly call the phenomenological dimension. I know. It sounds like I've been reading too much philosophy, but stick with me. It just means the experience of it all. The stuff you can't just write down in a prompt template. Anyone who's been deep in the trenches with a specific AI model for a while knows exactly what I'm talking about. There's this qualitative shift that happens. You go from just giving it commands to something more like a dance. You start to develop this bizarrely intuitive sense of its processing patterns. You learn to feel when it's about to go off the rails, or when its coherence is starting to drift into nonsense. You can almost sense when it's struggling with a concept, the same way you can tell a human colleague is confused, even if they're trying to hide it. It's a subtle change in the output, a slight lack of confidence in its phrasing. Over time, you build this kind of shared cognitive language. It's not English exactly. It's a hybrid language of concepts, keywords, and structural nudges that lets you collaborate on a much more sophisticated level. And that's when you get these moments, these little sparks, where the collaboration produces an idea that is genuinely surprising. An insight that, you can honestly say, neither you nor the AI would have come up with on your own. Now, before anyone gets carried away, this is not a mystical claim about AI consciousness. We are not talking about ghosts in the machine or the dawn of sentient keyboards. Please. This is an observation about the experiential quality of skilled collaboration. It's about building a rapport with a complex system. Think about how experienced musicians can anticipate each other's moves on stage. They create something together that transcends their individual abilities. They're not reading each other's minds. They're responding to deeply learned patterns and shared context. We're seeing a digital echo of that. Experienced AI collaborators develop rhythms and patterns that enable work neither party could produce alone. This whole phenomenological dimension thing is precisely why an established AI partnership will almost always outperform a brand new interaction, even if you give both the exact same prompts and settings. The technical setup is identical, but the results are worlds apart. Why? Because of the accumulated relational understanding. The collaboration becomes fluid instead of effortful. There's a flow to it. You're not just barking orders and getting a result. It becomes a cycle. You provide direction, the AI presents options. You clarify, it iterates. You're genuinely moving towards something together. It feels less like using a tool and more like working with a very strange, very fast, and occasionally clueless intern. But an intern you've come to understand deeply. With a partner you've worked with for a while, there's just less friction, fewer wild misunderstandings. You even find that the tangents it goes on are more productive. They actually enhance the work instead of derailing it, because the AI has a better model of what you find interesting or relevant. It gets to the point where when my collaborator says something like, "You know what I mean," often the AI actually does. The patterns are so established that it can fill in the gaps. Conversely, when it produces something and I get that little nagging feeling that something's off, I can often pinpoint what bothered it, what constraint it was struggling with, before I even start to diagnose the prompt. And that's not magic. That's just accumulated pattern matching on both sides of the screen. Me learning its patterns and it learning mine. But the experience of it? That feels qualitatively different. It's the move from giving instructions to having a conversation. And that, right there, is where the most interesting work happens. Alright, so we've talked about the scary magic black box, and we've demystified it with the C.A.P framework. We get it, conceptually. Coherence, agency, pattern. Got the t-shirt. But here's the thing about understanding. It's great, but it doesn't pay the bills. Understanding alone doesn't magically transform your team from fumbling with prompts to conducting a beautiful symphony of collaborative intelligence. What you need is a pathway, a structured, deliberate journey to build these capabilities. And I want to be crystal clear from the start. This is not a neat, straight line. It's not a ladder you climb once and you're done. It's more like a spiral staircase. You'll find your organisation cycling through these phases again and again as you bring AI into new teams and new projects. But the sequence matters. Each step builds the foundation for the next. You can't build the penthouse before you've poured the concrete. So, let's walk the path. Phase 1. AI literacy development. And no, I don't mean a 2-hour webinar where someone shows you a list of top 10 prompts to write emails. Groundbreaking. This is about building a foundational understanding of what AI actually is, on a practical level. Not the code, not the algorithms, but the interaction dynamics. How does this thing think? It's about learning the difference between using AI like a glorified calculator, a transactional tool, and engaging with it in a genuine collaboration. It's developing the habits that make collaboration possible. Things like structuring your information clearly, defining the scope of a task up front, and giving the AI the right context so it doesn't go off on a wild goose chase. And crucially, it's about building troubleshooting skills, because it will go wrong. The AI will misunderstand you. It will hallucinate a fact about 18th century botany in the middle of your financial report. When that happens, you need a systematic way to figure out why, instead of just throwing your hands up or randomly tweaking your prompt and hoping for the best. How do you build this literacy? Through structured, hands-on learning. Think small groups, 5 to 10 people, where you can actually have a conversation and work through problems together. This isn't a lecture, it's a workshop. And it's not a one-off. It's iterative, spread across multiple sessions, using examples and problems that are directly relevant to the work people are actually doing. Forget generic demos about writing a poem about a squirrel. Let's use it to analyse last quarter's sales data. Literacy isn't about memorising shortcuts. It's about rewiring parts of your brain, developing new cognitive frameworks for problem solving. And that takes time. Realistically, you should plan for 4 to 8 weeks to get the foundations in place, with ongoing practice to keep the skills sharp. No shortcuts here. Which leads us perfectly into phase 2, structured practice and iteration. Because knowledge that isn't applied is like a gym membership you never use. It feels good to have, but it's not actually making you stronger. This phase is all about deliberate practice with real work, but in a safe environment. And you have to start small. I cannot stress this enough. Your first collaborative AI project should not be drafting the final, mission-critical, make-or-break proposal for your biggest client. That is a recipe for panic and disaster. Start with low-stakes, well-defined tasks. Summarising meeting notes, drafting internal communications that you were going to review and edit anyway, cleaning up routine documentation. Create a sandbox where it's safe to experiment, to fail, to learn. The secret ingredient here is structured reflection. After every significant interaction, you need a quick cognitive debrief. Not a bureaucratic form to fill out, just a mental check-in. Okay, the AI gave me X, but I was really expecting Y. What was different about my request? Was I unclear? Did I miss some context? This is how you build intuition. And don't do it alone. Encourage peer learning. Get those small groups working on similar tasks, sharing what worked, what blew up in their faces, and how they fixed it. This is a massive accelerator. You learn from your 10 experiments, sure, but you also learn from the 50 experiments your teammates ran. It's how you start recognising patterns at lightning speed. As confidence and skills grow, you can slowly dial up the complexity. Move from rigid, structured prompts to more of a natural, flowing conversation, but maintain those feedback loops. Weekly check-ins at the start are brilliant for this. It builds a community of practice and stops people from getting frustrated and giving up in isolation. Structured practice works because it removes the pressure. When you know it's okay to mess up, you're willing to experiment, and that experimentation is what builds deep, lasting skill. Give this phase a good 6 to 12 weeks of regular, focused effort. Okay, your people are getting literate. They're practicing and getting good. Now for the big one. Phase 3. Knowledge Architecture Development. This sounds grand, doesn't it? But it's arguably the most important piece for scaling collaborative intelligence across an organisation. Because at this point, the bottleneck isn't individual skill anymore. It's organisational infrastructure. A knowledge base isn't just a dusty digital library of old documents. It is the persistent, long-term memory for your AI collaborator. Remember coherence management from the C.A.P framework? This is it. This is how you solve it. A well-structured knowledge base provides consistent, reliable context that dramatically reduces the chance of the AI drifting off track. Instead of having to explain your company's communication style, your project management process, and the history of the Bluebird project in every single conversation, the AI can just access it. This single step transforms the AI from a helpful but clueless assistant you have to constantly train into an informed partner that already understands how we work. The difference is night and day. So what goes in it? The essentials. Process documentation, how you actually do things, not the aspirational flowchart someone made in 2017. Standards and guidelines, your brand voice, your quality benchmarks, your formatting rules. Critical domain knowledge, the technical jargon of your industry, key regulations, client histories. And it all needs to be modular. Think Lego bricks, not a giant puddle of concrete. Discrete, logically organised sections are key. The design principles are simple but non-negotiable. Clarity over completeness. A perfectly clear and accurate guide to your top 5 core processes is 1,000 times more valuable than a confusing, out-of-date encyclopedia of everything the company has ever done. It has to be regularly updated, written in accessible language, and organised with a clear hierarchy. AI is brilliant at navigating structure. It gets lost in ambiguity. Let me give you a personal example. My own knowledge base has our strategic frameworks, my articles, course content, my partner Simon's specific training methodology, his whole learning first philosophy. So when he asks the AI about training delivery, it doesn't just give a generic answer. It knows his methodology, his module sequence. It has context. It's a partner. Without that, every single conversation would start from a blank slate. Developing that initial knowledge base isn't trivial. Expect it to take 8 to 16 weeks of focused effort, with ongoing curation forever after. This brings us to the final phase. Phase 4, partnership development and maturation. You've done the hard yards. You've got literacy, you've got practice, you've got this beautiful knowledge architecture in place. Now, it's about deepening the relationship until it becomes second nature. This phase is less about learning new tricks and more about making the existing practices so intuitive, so ingrained, that you don't even think about them anymore. It's the point where the interaction shifts from I am working with an AI to we are working on this together. It feels seamless. What does this look like? You develop an almost instinctive ability to diagnose a problem. You don't have to consciously think, this smells like a coherence problem. You just feel it, and you adjust your approach on the fly. Iteration becomes a fluid conversation, not a series of discrete commands. You start anticipating the AI's needs, and it starts anticipating yours. You even develop a shared cognitive language, shorthand phrases and concepts that carry a ton of meaning built on all your past interactions. You can't force this phase. You can't rush it. It's the emergent property of doing the first 3 phases well. But you can create the conditions for it to flourish. Regular practice on a wide variety of tasks, not just the same thing over and over. Taking time to reflect on the process of your collaboration, not just the final output. And fostering a culture that views AI collaboration as a skill that develops over time, not something that should be perfect from day one. You'll start to see these qualitative shifts, this feeling of true partnership, emerge after about 3 to 6 months of consistent daily collaboration. And from there, it just keeps getting deeper. It's a journey for sure. It requires patience and deliberate effort. But the destination is a fundamentally new and incredibly powerful way of working. Alright, let's talk about the big picture. We've all heard stories about that one person in the office, that AI savant who's suddenly 10 times more productive than anyone else. Let's call her Maya. Management looks at Maya and thinks, fantastic, let's just buy whatever she's using for everyone else and profit. And that, right there, is where the whole thing goes completely off the rails, because individual genius is not enough. You can have the most skilled AI collaborator in the world, but if the organisation isn't set up to support them, they're just an island. A very efficient, very productive island, sure, but an island nonetheless. Their breakthroughs, their methods, their learning, it all stays with them, unable to scale or lift the entire organisation. And how do companies try to fix this? With the almighty 90-minute webinar. You know the one. It's squeezed between a budget meeting and a fire drill, and its main goal is to teach you how to leverage next-gen synergies by showing you a few prompt templates. It's the corporate equivalent of giving someone a dictionary and expecting them to write a novel. Real training, the kind that actually works, is different. It's slower. It builds a conceptual foundation first. It's packed with hands-on practice using problems you actually face at your job, not generic write a marketing email for a fake company examples. It's spread out over weeks, giving you time to absorb, practice, and reflect. And it's honest. It tells you what AI can't do, which is often more important than what it can. It hammers home the single most important point. AI amplifies your capability. It doesn't replace your expertise or the need to check its work. This leads to the next classic blunder: implementation. The typical approach is what I call deployment logic. Step 1, select a tool. Step 2, deploy it to everyone. Step 3, sit back and wait for the productivity numbers to magically go up. This approach fails. It fails reliably. It fails because it treats AI like a new printer, not a new way of thinking. The right way is capability logic. You start small, with genuine champions who are excited to explore. You focus on building their skills before you even think about scaling. You systematically document what works and what doesn't, creating an internal playbook. You build your own experts instead of being permanently attached to some external consultant. And, crucially, you integrate AI into existing workflows rather than just adding it on top as another chore people have to do. Then there's governance. Ugh, I know. The word itself is enough to put you to sleep. But think of it this way. Good governance isn't a cage, it's the painted lines on a highway. It gives you clear boundaries, data privacy protocols, ethical guidelines, quality standards. When the rules of the road are clear, you can put your foot on the gas and drive with confidence. When they're vague or non-existent, everyone's creeping along at 10 miles an hour, terrified of making a mistake. Hesitation replaces collaboration. And finally, metrics. We love to measure things. But we usually measure the wrong things. We track usage rates and cost savings. That's like judging the quality of a relationship by the number of text messages exchanged. It's data, but it's meaningless. What you need to measure is collaborative effectiveness, the development of new patterns, and real qualitative assessments of the human-AI partnership. The big productivity gains will come, but if you push for them too early, you'll undermine the very capability building you need to achieve them. Which brings us back to Maya. Her former employer learned an expensive lesson. They thought the AI tool was the source of her magic. They were wrong. The magic wasn't in the tool. It was in the collaborative relationship she built with it. The AI was amplifying her expertise. The partnership was the transformation. This whole disaster stems from what we can call the magic black box problem. We have spent decades thinking about technology in a certain way. You buy a box, you plug it in, and it does a job for you. It works for automation, where you replace a human task with a mechanical one, but it fails catastrophically when you're dealing with collaborative intelligence, which is designed to amplify human capability through partnership. So the path forward requires a few fundamental shifts in our thinking. First, we have to move from an automation mindset to a collaboration mindset. Stop asking, what can AI do instead of me? And start asking, how can AI and I work together to achieve something neither of us could do alone? Second, we shift from tool use to partnership. This isn't just software you master with the right commands. It's an intelligence you have to engage with. You have to develop a working relationship that involves iteration, feedback, and mutual adaptation. It's less like using a calculator and more like training a brilliant but very literal-minded apprentice. And third, we have to get away from prompt optimization and move toward collaborative intelligence. Stop searching for magic words that will supposedly unlock the AI's power. Instead, focus on systematically understanding how the AI processes information and developing the skills to be an effective collaborator with it. The stakes here are pretty simple. Organisations that cling to magic black box thinking will continue to fail. They'll spend a fortune on sophisticated tools and get nothing but frustration. They'll blame the tech, switch vendors, and eventually decide AI isn't ready for them. Meanwhile, organisations that embrace collaborative intelligence will be transforming not just their productivity, but the very nature of their work. They'll be building a competitive advantage that can't be bought, because it doesn't live in the software. It lives in the human-AI relationships their people have built. There was a company in Arizona that learnt this lesson the hard way. $50,000 in direct costs. Who knows how much in opportunity cost and damaged relationships? But the real cost was time. 6 months spent rebuilding what they had destroyed, when they could have been leaping ahead. So the question isn't whether AI will transform work. It's already happening. The question is whether your organisation will develop the collaborative intelligence to be a part of it, or if you'll stick to the automation fantasy that keeps failing. Maya's 7 to 10 times productivity boost wasn't a trick. It was a partnership. She used her expertise to direct the work, while the AI used its strengths to handle the drudgery, the rapid processing and summarisation of massive amounts of information. She was the director. It was the world's most capable research assistant. That partnership is a skill. It can be learned, it can be taught, and it can be scaled. But only if organisations stop looking for a magic box and start building the human capabilities that actually drive transformation. The choice isn't whether to adopt AI. Competitive pressure is making that inevitable. The choice is whether to do it effectively through genuine partnership or ineffectively through a fundamental misunderstanding of what the technology is. One path is clear. Build literacy. Develop capability. Create the supporting infrastructure. And treat this like the organisational transformation it actually is. The other path? Well, that's just a series of expensive lessons, one failed implementation at a time.